Hello and welcome to All About Cars, and the buzz this week has been all about the Hyundai i20, the new i20, the third generation car. It'll drop the Elite name, it'll just be the i20 again. And Hyundai says that they've made a lot of improvements, be it in terms of production, testing, quality, and the car will redefine a few things in the segment. So it's going to be sportier than the car it replaces, the NVH will be better, the quality levels will be better. And so it'll be a car to look forward to. The launch is on 5th November and we'll have more details about how the car drives as well pretty soon. But for now, Hyundai has revealed a whole bunch of things about the car: drivetrain options, versions, colors, etc. So let me just read out the CarWale article on that, so it'll give you a better idea on what there is. So the third generation Hyundai i20 will be offered in 4 versions. There's the Magna, Sports, Asta and Asta O. It will be available in 8 colors, so a huge range of color options are available. And in terms of powertrain, you will have 2 petrol and 1 diesel. The 1.2 litre naturally aspirated petrol will come with a manual gearbox, a 5-speed, and you can have it with a CVT as well. And then there is the 1 litre turbo, the same that you get in the Venue and the Verna, and that will be available with a dual clutch automatic and the IMT, the manual without the clutch, which is a fantastically calibrated unit, and it takes a little time to get used to, but it's quite enjoyable, the IMT is. And then of course there's the diesel, and the diesel will only come with a 6-speed manual. So those are your versions, your drivetrain options, and of course it will go up against the likes of the Baleno and the Ciaz, and it will be the newest car in its class. So a lot of things are like loaded in its favor, and from what we've seen in the recent past, Hyundai, at least at the start, will go with a really attractive price point. Given the market scenario today with the COVID and everything, I think they would need to do that to keep the buyer sentiments high. And now with Diwali due, festive season, right in the meat of the festive season, so I guess we'll see a very attractive price point. So we'll have more on that later, and this is a car that we think is going to be worth watching out for. The other news this week was the Thar, or is the Thar. We had said when we spoke about the Thar that the initial response, even with that price point, which we thought was a little steep, that there will be a tsunami when it comes to bookings and interest in the Thar, and that's exactly what we're seeing. CarWale did a story where it says that the Thar waiting period is up to 22 weeks. So that's a lot of waiting for a car, and I think it is essentially the initial buzz around it. And going forward, maybe the waiting period will come down. If it continues at this level, Mahindra will probably increase the production of the car as well. But as expected, good response for a product that's well sorted. Again, I wish it was slightly better price, but I think it's still working wonders for Mahindra at the moment. And now let's take some questions. So let's start with the questions that we've received on Instagram. We've got Dilip Kumar, who's asked us that whether it's a good option to go for a used Vento 1.6 diesel TDI Highline. It's a 2011 model, run about 42,000 kilometers, and he's getting it for 4.2 lakhs. So is it worth going for? I think it is. The Ventos, we've not really heard of any problems in the diesels. They're reliable diesels. The Vento as a car is well built, so you won't have any issues in that front. And 42,000 kilometers is nothing, honestly. And I think an asking price of 4 lakhs, maybe you can ask the seller to sell it for 4, and that'll make a good proposition. So certainly, Dilip, you should go for the Vento used, the piece that you have here. Next up, we've got Rahul Panse, and he wants to understand why is that CNG cars don't come with automatic transmissions. Is it something to do with mechanics, or is it some other reason? So we don't think that, or it's got nothing to do with the fuel. CNG cars are essentially the same as petrol cars. But the point is that when somebody produces a CNG car, or once somebody buys a CNG car, the goal there is to have low running cost. And manuals are inherently more efficient than automatics. So clearly you will get more fuel efficiency when you go with a CNG manual compared to a CNG automatic. Second, of course, is the purchase price. So automatics are around a lakh more expensive than similar cars with manuals. So the whole point, the cost benefit of CNG is completely lost if you go for an automatic. And performance wise also, there is a loss compared to petrol. So it's not really an ideal combination, a combination that is inefficient and not in demand. So you don't see any of it. And now let's take some questions of Facebook. We've got Ankish, and Ankish wants to know when is the Tata Harrier petrol coming. So it should be launched latest by early next year. The engine's ready. It is essentially the same engine as on the Nexon, but with an added cylinder. So this will be a 4-cylinder, turbo petrol, direct injection, all of that. And you'd need that with the Harrier's weight. You'd need something like a turbo petrol because you'd need that torque to pull the SUV along, to make it easier to drive, nicer to drive. So it is definitely on cards, and it makes sense for Tata Motors to bring it as soon as possible, because it'll help cut the Harrier price by at least a lakh. You're looking at the Harriers currently available only in diesel, and the difference between petrol and diesel these days is close to a lakh. So that should help bring in buyers for the Harrier, who find that the Harrier is too expensive at the moment. So soon, early 2021. Next up, we've got Dharamji, and he wants to buy an SUV, and he wants us to help him decide whether he should go for the Ford EcoSport Petrol automatic or the Kia Sonet Diesel automatic. So it's probably more a question of what fuel rather than which car, because if you drive, if there's a lot of driving involved, be it on the highway or in the city, let's say over 2,500, over 3,000 kilometers, then diesel makes sense. If it's less than that, then petrol is the one you should go for. So since you like the EcoSport Petrol, then that's the one you should go for if you drive less than 2,500 kilometers a month. And the Kia Sonet's an option if you want diesel, if you drive more than 2,500 or 3,000 kilometers a month. So that's I hope that answers that. And between the EcoSport and the Sonet, if you're just looking at these two SUVs and you want, let's say you want a petrol and you want to decide between the two, then we'd say the Sonet is a newer SUV. Its quality levels are higher, equipment levels are much more than the EcoSport. The EcoSport is more spacious. It might be a little old school, but in terms of ride and handling, it's quite well balanced in that sense. So and it is easy to drive. So that's the difference between the two SUVs. Next, we've got Raghav, and he's asked us a long, complicated question, but the bottom line is that he wants a petrol car which is automatic, because he drives less than 600 kilometers a month. He's from his calculation of down payment, EMIs, etc., we think that he's looking at a car that is priced around 10 to 11 lakhs on the road, and he's asked us to give him 2-3 options. So let's start. Let's say you want to go with since you're going to be driving the car all alone, maybe you'd want a smallish hatchback. So let's say the Swift AMT is a great option to go for. In terms of dynamics, in terms of comfort, in terms of build quality, Swift is really a benchmark in that class. If you want something bigger, the new i20 is coming, and we'd recommend that you wait for that to see how it compares with the others in the class, because there's a lot of hype around it. Hyundai is very, very confident about that car, so it'll be worth looking in before you decide which medium-sized hatchback that you should buy. And if you are looking at, let's say, SUV, sub 4 meter SUV, then you could look at the Sonet. It's slightly pricier. It would, I think the IMT and the DCT would cost a little under 12 lakhs, but it would be, I mean, if it's a smallish SUV, but it's a good driving SUV, and if you're a single and you can afford that, then I think that also is a worthy option to look at. Hope that answers your questions. We've given you 3 versions, 3 options, different price points, and you can make your choice. We've got Shubham, who's asked us to help him choose between 3 hatchback options. There's the Polo Trendline, there's the Altroz XE, and there's the Ford Freestyle Ambiente. And he's looking for a hatchback to replace his Maruti 800. He's looking for affordable service. He's looking for good ground clearance. And he's asked us which one he should go for. So clearly, when it comes to engines, all three cars get very meh sort of engines. And we'd say that either if you like the Altroz, I mean, Altroz is spacious, it's a good looking car, good on the outside, good on the inside. The Polo in comparison is an old looking car, old on the outside, old on the inside. Quality levels are pretty similar. But in case of the Altroz, it would make sense to wait for the turbo engine that it is going to be launched in, petrol turbo. Of course, it will be a little more expensive and could possibly be out of your budget. I don't know, but it will be worth waiting for, because given the weight of the car, the turbo is a good add-on. Similarly with the Polo, you'd probably have to go for the Highline, because that's where the nicer engine is. I mean, it's the same 3-cylinder 1-liter engine, but it's direct injection and turbocharged compared to the Trendline, which is a naturally aspirated engine, and so the amount of go isn't so, it's the overall driving and owning experience completely changes with the engine. So our recommendation would be to go for the turbocharged versions on both. If you like the Altroz, wait. I mean, if you want a spacious car, a nicer looking car, then wait for the Altroz. If you're okay with the Polo, then try and extend your budget and go for the Highline. As for the Freestyle, again, I mean, it's not an engine that it's not an engine that really excites you. But when it comes to ground clearance and when it comes to service, the Freestyle is better than both the Altroz and the Polo on both counts. So it's a more practical option. It fits your needs better than both the Polo and the Altroz. But as a feel-good experience and a nicer car to have, I think the turbos are there. If I were you, I'd wait and try and save more and get those. But if it's a need right now, I think for your need of affordable service and higher ground clearance, the Freestyle is the one to go for. We've got Rohit, and he wants a petrol car up to 17 lakh rupees, and he wants a car that he's going to drive only or mostly in the city. So he's looking for a petrol automatic, and his options include the Creta or the Honda, the new Honda City. So in both cases, I think if you're looking at a car for city, then we'd say the City makes more sense. It's just easier to drive, lighter controls, better visibility, closer to the ground. So it's just easier to drive. The Creta, we've spent some time with it, and it's a nice option if you're going to do some amount of highway driving, because you've got high seating, better long distance visibility. You're not so worried about the road surface. But for, let's say, within the city, and I think you're in Delhi NCR, so you've already got great roads in most places. So I think the Honda City makes a better option. Shravan has asked us that should he go for the Sonet IMT. He's really keen on the Sonet, and he's also he wants this particular version, this particular gearbox, but he's not sure about the technology, and he's not sure how long it's going to last. So he wants to know, should he go for the IMT or should he just go for the diesel manual? So the IMT on the Sonet as well as on the Venue, same IMT, surprisingly good, surprisingly intuitive. When we drove it, the experience was way better than we thought it's going to be. It's absolutely seamless. It's got the right systems built into it, so you are not accidentally going to break it. If you try and shift it with you being on the gas, it'll vibrate and tell you, and then the shifts might be a little difficult, but off the gas shifts are seamless, or they click into place nicely just like they do in the manual. The release has far less head nod than even in a manual, and at the end of the day, it's a manual with regular clutch. All of that, only thing is you're not using the clutch, and it's sensor based, so the wear will be a lot lesser. The driving experience, like we said, is seamless. It's nice, and if you've never driven an automatic, it'll take some time. Even if you've driven an automatic, it just takes a little time for you to remember that you need to make the shifts. But there's nothing to worry about there. It's a new experience, but from what we've seen, it's a nicer experience. you still have more control compared to an automatic, and it's more effortless to drive than a manual. So it's a good combo, and you should definitely go for that. And now let's take some questions that you've sent on our YouTube film from last week. Thank you so much for writing in. First up, we've got Sasi Kumar, and he wants to know which is the best sedan overall. His options include the Verna, the all-new City, the Vento, the Ciaz. Our advice would be the Verna is a great package. The City is great when it comes to ease of driving, when it comes to space, and even in terms of ride and handling, it's nicer than the older car. The Verna in terms of quality is better. It has all the right features. You have nicer drivetrain options in terms of having a DCT with a turbo petrol, which is what we're using as our long term. So it's actually you need to choose whether you want a more spacious car, which is the City, or you want a slightly sportier looking interior, slightly better equipped car, which is the Verna. Drive them back to back and then decide. So if you've got a family of 5, we'd still say go with the City, but if you're like just a couple or 4, then maybe the Verna is also a good option. So, but drive them back to back and see what you like. Next up, we've got Raja, and he wants to know which is a better performing car, the XUV300 diesel or the Ford EcoSport diesel, and he also wants to know which is better built. So in terms of performance, I think they're pretty closely matched, and at the end you want to look at 2 things. You want to look at A, which is nicer to drive, or which is more practical. So the XUV300 is dynamically better than the EcoSport. It's more settled around corners in a straight line. It feels more involving to drive than the EcoSport. The EcoSport is slightly roly-poly in that sense, not a lot, but compared to the 300. But the EcoSport is more practical. It's got a bigger boot. So at the end, the performance-wise, I think there isn't a lot of difference, but the EcoSport is more practical and its interiors look nicer, newer than the XUV300. The XUV300 interiors, even though they're, I think it's a decently wide car, but the interiors I mean, they look old when the car was launched, so they're pretty dated looking in that sense. But if you like driving, then of course the 300 is a better option. Abdul says he's 6.3 in height. He has a family of 5, and he's looking to buy a car. He wants to know whether he should go for a sedan or an SUV. Among sedans, he likes the Superb, and among SUVs, there are lots of options. He's said he's okay with the Fortuner, the Endeavour, or the Gloucester. So we should help him out on that front. And he loves driving fast. So I think that last statement about you like driving, or so that clearly settles the debate. Go for the Superb. When it comes to driving dynamics, when it comes to driver involvement, I think the Superb is way better than any of these heavy body on ladder frame SUVs. It's also going to be more efficient. So yeah, I mean that really easily settles the debate, and it's super spacious. So for 5 people, no problem. Big boot, no problem. So the Superb it is. Tushar has asked us, he wants to buy a family car, 16 lakh rupees thereabouts, essentially to be used in the city, and he wants us to give him an option both in the sedan class and the SUV class. So SUV class, it's quite easy to suggest. Go for the Creta. It's comfortable. It's not as sporty as the Seltos, but it's or the Duster for that matter. But it is comfortable. It's easy to drive. It can seat 5. The boot isn't great, but I mean it's you can live with it. So Creta would be our suggestion in the SUV category, and the all-new City would be our suggestion in the sedan class. Again, easy to drive, comfortable, seating for 5 no problem, decently big boot. That would be it. Yeah. There's a question from Vishal, and he says that his budget is about 10 lakh rupees and he wants to know what car he should go for. He's new to driving. Should he go for a new one or an old one, and what would make sense? So our suggestion would be to go for the Honda Jazz. Since you are new to driving, things like light controls, good visibility all around, even for parking, helps. Having a short bonnet helps. So all of this comes together really well in the Jazz, as you can look at that. If you even could be a used Jazz as well. I think used Jazz, maybe 2-3 years old, they go for about 7.5 lakhs in a diesel ones in good condition. If you buy petrol, it'll be lesser. So the Honda Jazz would be a great car for you to start with since you're new to driving. Now, Siva has written to us and asked us about the BS6 Hexa. When would that come, and when would the next generation XUV500 come? So the XUV500, the next generation, should be out mid of next year, calendar year. As for the Hexa BS6, well, we don't know because the Hexa didn't do well from the start. They made some revisions, but even then, the demand for the car has been really low. And now with the Gravitas coming, does it make sense to have the Hexa? I'm not so sure. So there is nothing on the Hexa that we know of, and we don't think that the BS6 version would be coming out, or at least anytime soon. Though at the expo they had shown a version of the Hexa, a sportier version, a more off-road version, so to say, but there's no clarity as to when that would come. So XUV500 new generation mid of next year, and Hexa, well, we're not sure. Abdul has asked us whether one can jumpstart an IMT transmission car. In case of a manual transmission, if the battery dies, you can just push the car, put it into second gear, dump the clutch, and it starts. In case of automatics, you need to use jumper cables and use another car battery and start it. So, well, as it turns out, IMT is too new and we haven't been in that situation. We haven't heard, but logic dictates that IMT would be very similar to an automatic, so you will not be able to jump start it, possibly, because even if you shift to second, it'll have to, come to a particular speed for it to start working, and we're not sure whether it'll work if when the engine's not running. So it's safe to assume that you can use jumper cables and get it to run. Kshitij has written to us and says that he owns the Baleno right now and he's looking at upgrading. He wants a car in the 9 to 12 lakh bracket and he's keen on the Rapid TSI manual. And he wants to know whether when it comes to fun to drive, when it comes to good build quality, when it comes to being comfortable for 4 adults, a good car for the city and equally good on highway runs, does the Skoda Rapid TSI manual cut it? And the short answer to that is yes, it does. The manual isn't the best shifting manual, but the TSI engine, the 1 liter TSI, is a nice engine. It's again not really great sounding, but in terms of performance, it's got the cake. It is pretty quick. It accelerates fast. It pulls you out of corners really well. The manual could have slightly better shift quality, but it's again short throw, light clutch, and good steering. So overall, when it comes to the driving experience, I think the TSI manual really works well. You will enjoy it. You would probably enjoy it more than the Baleno, and I'm guessing that you didn't have the RS, you had the regular one, so you'll certainly enjoy this more. And the Rapid is a spacious car, so 4 people, no problem, and it's a well-damped car. So again, city driving, highway driving, ride quality should be good. Build quality, we've never really had any issues with either Volkswagens or Skodas, be it Rapids or Polos. So no worries on that front. So yeah, if you like the Rapid TSI manual, we wholeheartedly recommend it. Go for it. And that's a wrap on All About Cars. Do write in and let us know what you thought, and do keep writing in your questions. Also, do like, share, subscribe and comment, because we are here for you. The more you tell us, the better we will do. Thank you for watching.